The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find. The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style.
Welcome to the Big H Podcast. This is Mike Heise, and I'm here with James Capellupo III. James, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
We wanted to go to a little bit more youthful Hilton history on this episode, and James has had a nice history of social media, and you're originator of Barstool Hilton. And for listeners out there, James, when I was growing up, pretty much had the Democrat and Chronicle. That's how news got disseminated. Internet came along, and then nowadays kids are on social media with cell phones and everything, and so news is transmitted immediately. And what you've done with Barstool Hilton, highlighting student athletes from Hilton, getting news out for them, publicizing their accolades, has really been great for our community, for your student body. And just really thank you for doing that, because it takes work. I guess I'll just start off, a brief question. How did you go about getting the idea for a Barstool Hilton Twitter? I don't know, what do you call that? A social media?
Yeah, so we call it just a platform. We're on Instagram and Twitter. And the idea came about last year. Me and a couple of my buddies were talking about ways to get more school spirit out there, incorporate more people into the community, get energy up for games and accomplishments of individuals and teams. So we decided to come up with this platform, Barstool Hilton. It'd be a chance to get individual accomplishments out there after big wins, get those out there, kind of coordinate people showing up to games, rallying up everybody to support our teams. And so we created Barstool Hilton on Instagram and Twitter, and then it just kind of took off from there. Last year, I worked with a couple guys, Travis Firkins and Braden Jones. The three of us kind of ran Barstool Hilton. Then this year, I took it over with them graduating last year, and it kind of just blew up to a new degree this year with me in charge.
How did you come up with the name Barstool Hilton? Was that off of Dave Portnoy?
Oh, yeah, it was straight from Portnoy. We loved what he does with Barstool Sports, obviously, and all the affiliates, with colleges, cities, things of that nature, where it'd be perfect for a small town like Hilton to kind of get on that map and have a Barstool account.
Did you run any problems with the Barstool name? Did you have to divert attention, like you weren't affiliated with that or anything?
Yeah, so we explicitly in our bio, in Instagram and Twitter, note that we're not affiliated with Portnoy or any of his things like that with Barstool Sports. We're not in a direct affiliate. And then in the beginning, we said we weren't affiliated with the school just to kind of make things easier, but then we kind of, with all the administrators, ended up getting close, and they ended up loving what we did, so we kind of didn't have to worry about that as much after a little bit.
Very good. Very good. On your Twitter page, and I'm a follower now, how many followers do you have?
On Twitter, we're at 1,500, and I think Instagram's 2,700.
Okay, so total?
Over 4,000.
Over 4,000?
Yeah.
Now, do you get kids from other schools following your stuff?
Well, that's the cool part, is it's mostly, we do have some people, every once in a while pop up. Someone will follow us from a different school, but it's primarily Hilton people, so it's pretty cool for a small community like Hilton that doesn't have a ton of a population. The town is a pretty large percentage of the people that live in Hilton that are on social media are following us, with over 4,000 followers, which is pretty neat.
It is very neat. On your Twitter page, it says, covering everything Hilton athletics, greatest one school platform in Section 5 history, unaffiliated with that Barstool Sports, and then it says #Roll Cadets, #Cowtown Proud. I love that Cowtown Proud.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I don't know if you know the myth of where that came from.
I don't think I do.
Okay, I'll fill you in. I had my father, mother both went through Hilton, and your field where you play baseball now, you got fences, you got dugouts, you got a concession stand. It used to be an open cow field there. and cows used to just walk right up to you know, the fences, and even when there weren't fences. And so Hilton got the name of
Oh, okay,
Cowtown.
yeah,
So little bit of, I think it's mythology, but I also think it's true.
to an
Um,
extent, probably.
I liked your Barstool Hilton that you have apples around it.
Hmm.
Okay. Are you aware of that Hilton's known as Appletown,
Yes,
USA too?
yeah, hmm,
Okay. Now you came from Pittsford, is that correct?
yes.
Okay. Um, what grade did you come into our community?
Yeah, I came over right around Christmas time of my sixth grade year. So I ended up spending about half a year at Northwood and then went on to Merton Williams after that.
Okay. And was it a little bit culture shock, or was it easy to fit in from a Pittsford to a smaller town of Hilton?
Yeah, so I'd say both of those are accurate. It was a huge culture shock because Hilton's way different than Pittsford. Obviously one kind of real wealthy, affluent, suburban to a more rural, kind of close-knit community with not as much money widely spread around. But to me, with it being a culture shock, it was a good culture shock because it allowed me to fit in super well. Because I feel like myself, I'm more like a Hilton kind of guy versus a Pittsford kind of guy. So I fit in right away after that culture shock and just fell in love with this town, which is obviously what led me to have this pride and this passion about Hilton to have all that and decide to start these platforms and put so much time and effort into this community because I just love it here.
And Barstool, did you have to have funding for that?
No, so I mean, any of the initial stuff that we spent on making like graphics, obviously gas money going to games and things of that nature was coming out of my pocket and anyone else who has helped me out. But then we did end up getting some sponsors going forward from local businesses, which helped out a lot, giving us some monthly money to put their logo out there. We're doing pregame interviews, postgame interviews. We're kind of shouting those companies out, saying, this is presented by things like Studio 22 Fitness, the Creamery of Hilton, things of that nature, Petnaries, which helped out a lot, and obviously helped them out too with a big following we have.
Now we will get into your individual accolades for baseball. You ever think of name, image, and likeness?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I was going to ask you questions about sponsors, but you pretty much highlighted
Yeah.
that. How did you? Was it hard once you got going to then, you go, everyone says, okay, you follow football. Then it's like, okay, can you come out to field hockey? Like, did you automatically just go out to all those sports and cover them all?
Yeah, so I mean, of course, like, everyone in Hilton kind of goes to the football games. So, of course, I'm taking the time to go out to every football game, home or away, cover those, put a ton of time into that. But then it did certainly get to the point where, every sport wanted to be covered, which they deserve to be covered, which is kind of why I got into this platform to begin with. So there was times when, I was going out to field hockey games and it was, me and like one or two other people in the student section, and we're kind of just still putting our time in, making sure everyone's seeing the scores, interviewing the girls before and after games. Pretty much every sport like that. I don't think we missed a sport all year. I believe it was 26 sports between boys and girls that we covered. So pretty crazy. And sometimes it would get stressful, if I have obviously individual things going on in my life outside of this, and people would be like, hey, it'd be really important to our team to come out to the game tonight. And I'd have to kind of really time manage to get my stuff done first and make sure that I got out and could support that team or that individual that was asking, and then get everyone covered and kind of spread the love to everybody. So it took a lot of work, but it was certainly super rewarding for me and for everyone else that was getting covered.
Now you mentioned the cadet crew. Did you have a big hand in leading that this year too?
Yes, I was the leader of the cadet crew this year in addition to Barstool Hilton. So I actually did run 3 platforms. So I had Barstool on Instagram, Barstool on Twitter, and then Cadet Crew on Twitter. Cadet Crew also has 1,500 followers on Twitter. So we were about 6,000 followers between the 3 platforms that I ran this year, which is pretty cool. So I coordinated themes for every game, coordinated tailgates, coordinated fan buses to sectional games and other big games, things of that nature. So obviously once we got to the field, I was leading the chants, leading group movements, everything of that nature at games itself too. So big role in cadet sports this year.
Give me some of the ideas of our listeners. What were some of those themes?
Yeah, so we had Cowtown theme, of course. We had our USA theme. We had Pink Out theme for breast cancer throughout the month with different events during that. And then kind of your basic stuff like we had a Halloween one year Halloween wear your costumes to the game. We had pajamas, jersey themes, and then of course the colors. We had a whiteout, blackout, and a red sea. So about 10 different themes we kind of worked throughout the year.
Now, to be a leader on these platforms, you're obviously a big sports guy no matter what. I knew you first as a basketball player. I know you played basketball this year on the
Yeah.
varsity team. I think you scored 10 or 12 points in the senior game.
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
whatever.
12-point senior night,
I
yeah.
don't know where you were all year, but you did it on that night. I have to talk to Coach Prince on a future podcast, and then baseball, of course.
Yeah,
GPA, are you a 4.0?
yeah.
Okay.
hmm
And like I said, being a big sports guy, do you know a little about all? Because I go to field hockey games once in a while, a lacrosse game. I don't truly know, but if you were to go to those games, could you like broadcast them? Like you know enough
Oh
about
yeah.
them?
That was the cool thing about this year too, is I'm obviously a huge baseball, basketball, football, soccer, hockey guy. Obviously some of those sports have different both boys and girls teams, so a large percentage of the sports I was pretty well versed in, probably one of the most well, know as much of anybody in the school on those sports. But then there was also some other sports like volleyball, lacrosse that by going to so many games I became super well versed in really quickly, obviously already having a base background of knowledge on sports. So kind of became super knowledgeable on those sports right away, which was cool to kind of become gain some expertise in some new sports that I didn't know a ton about going into the year.
Now, you said you had some help from people. Like, did you have some help with your graphics and all that? Or
hmm
okay,
Yeah, big shout out for the graphics was a kid named Paul Valenti. He was a junior on the football team this year, incoming senior. He's a great guy, good friend of mine. He did beautiful work on the graphics. Obviously, he's super busy too, doing all his stuff. So sometimes I'd make the graphics. If I didn't have time, I'd kind of lean on him to make the graphics and vice versa. So we kind of split that up, and it was he was a huge help and huge part of the platform. Because obviously it's nice when you get posted on a platform that has a lot of followers, but it's even nicer when it's a super cool graphic and looks super clean and sharp, and it's pretty cool. And people saved a lot of the graphics and then ended up posting them on their personal accounts and whatnot. And we gave them never didn't give permission for them to do that, so kids loved that too.
yeah. One of them I saw was Champions, and I think I still see Carl Coons running out and just the team running out after him. It's great.
Oh yeah,
And then when you guys won the division championship this year for baseball, is a great scene of you
yeah,
guys all free dog pile.
uh-huh,
It's
yeah,
really cool. So yeah, those graphics and images really do make that bar stool just like come out and jump
yeah.
to the viewer.
And it really legitimized it too to everybody. Obviously, we're a student-run platform, so to be able to have some really professional graphics was a big part of kind of gaining that following and gaining a big level of credit with the community.
I like it that because I thought my son, who's your age and graduated with you, he mentioned Paul Valenti. I thought it was like Valenti Sports. I thought it was like
Oh yeah,
a
yeah,
professional. I didn't realize it was a student.
yeah.
Is he going to college for something to deal with platforming and
Yeah, I believe
broadcasting?
he's gonna go to college for graphic design. I don't know, you'd have for sure. I don't want to quote me on
Speak for
that,
him.
but yeah. But he's a friend of mine and he's an incoming senior, so he's got some time to decide. But I believe he does want to go to college for graphic design.
Okay. Now we did cover your 4.0.
hmm
That's correct. Um, I've talked to some teachers and they say you're very bright. And have you decided what you want to study in college?
Yeah, I want to study elementary education. I want to be either I could switch that a little bit going forward if I wanted to, but my main focus is either elementary school classroom teacher or a high school English teacher.
Well, the Heise family can help you out in both because myself and my wife are both elementary teachers, and of course, my younger brother is a high school English teacher. So
Yep.
you have a place to come and
Oh
observe and do
yeah.
student teaching if you want. Very rewarding career,
That's why I want to get into it. Yeah.
and then you can also, once your playing days are over, it's a great profession to
hmm
supplement with coaching or whatever you want
Yeah.
to do. Um, I've also read a lot of your tweets. I'm new to the social
Twitterverse. Yeah.
media emojis. Some of our listeners are used to listening to Dave Crum, my conversations with Crum, and they're a little bit on the older side. Explain to them what emojis are and how you go about choosing just the right emoji to describe your feelings.
Yeah, so emojis are different little small, kind of like a letter on your keyboard, but with a image, usually colorful. Could be anything from a country's flag to a face with a smiley face or a frowny face or a cowboy or just about anything. So we would use emojis to kind of display how we were feeling. Someone scores a touchdown, we might put a fire emoji or lots of exclamation mark emojis, things like that on our posts, and then we would use them to display themes too. If we were doing a blackout, for instance, there's an emoji that's just a black circle, so we might use that. Cowtown stuff, we'd always use our cowboy emoji with the cowboy hat on it, or like a little farmer with a piece of string in his mouth, hey there. And then so all sorts of things like that. Obviously, smiley faces for big things that were happening, And then our big one, we used black and red hearts. So we'd have a red heart and then a black heart just to kind of display Hilton pride after a big win or a big game coming up, something like that.
Now, in some of your tweets, I noticed you had like video on. Is that video that you're taking, or are you taking that from another feed?
Yeah, so that was the tough part too, is a lot of times, I'm obviously in the crowd, leading the student section, leading chants, getting everyone riled up, things like that. And then I'm also trying to take moments, if I can sense something big is going to happen, like let's say, we got fourth and goal on the 3 yard line, I might be taking my phone out, and then as another duty, I'm also recording that. And then hopefully, we punch that in and all of a sudden I got that video on my phone and I can post that right to our social media. So that was another big responsibility, something that was difficult to do, but definitely rewarding to then get that footage for the whoever scored the touchdown or just everyone in general to enjoy that footage.
Yeah, and I do think because there are some people that couldn't go to games, and they would follow Twitter and they could follow your feed, and
Yeah.
sometimes Hilton Athletics was there and you could do that. But some of those big contests, and you want to see the play and just how it developed, and there you had it. Now, eventually, like I said, we're going to get to your baseball accolades. Was there any, I guess, did you have a favorite sport that you liked to cover? I mean, was baseball one of them? I don't know.
Yeah, so baseball, the big thing with that is obviously I was playing in it. I did have a couple people that I would give account access to every so often that they could kind of post updates throughout the game since I couldn't do that since I was playing in it. But obviously I love to, post game after big wins and things like that, be able to get baseball posts right away. And it was easy too because with me playing in the games and obviously being a leader of the team, I was kind of aware of everyone's stats, aware of everyone who had a big impact in the game. And obviously being someone who's super knowledgeable about baseball, I could really well highlight everyone who did something well, whether it was me or someone else. I could real explicitly kind of go into detail about what they did since I was at every game and obviously super aware of what was going on. But I would say overall, the most fun games to be at were definitely football. Obviously, kind of a staple of Hilton. But I would say an under the radar sport I really like to cover was volleyball. I found those games super fast paced, super exciting. Kind of a sport that doesn't get as much love as some other sports, but we actually ended up getting some huge crowds out to some volleyball games, which the girls loved. Obviously, not a sport that typically gets a ton of crowds, but with me leading the student section in Barstool and all that, we produced some big crowds, and people got kind of really started to like volleyball for the first time, which was neat.
And now you said you led the cheers. Were they always wholesome, or did you get deep into the weeds and you got in trouble occasionally?
No, I didn't really get in trouble, especially with everyone, all the administrators and supervisors and everything had a good relationship with me. I was kind of close with everybody, which was good. So they never really got me in trouble. But occasionally things would get a little tense. You throw something out there that wasn't necessarily inappropriate, was probably not well received by some people. So they had to be a little friendly reminder, hey, maybe we'll not do that next time. But overall, it was really positive. And obviously, I would say we had one of the best student sections around.
I would agree. Now, did you guys go to big away games on student section buses and stuff like that?
Yeah. So the coordination of the fan buses was largely my responsibility. I would kind of go down to the athletic office, kind of try to coordinate those as much as possible. Obviously, that's big because, kids a lot of kids don't have their license that are in high school, obviously. And then even kids that do, their parents might not let them drive 45 minutes or they don't want to spend that gas money. So getting a fan bus was critical to big attendance at these away games. So I'd set that up, and then we would go super far to some games. We had a fan bus all the way out to Union Endicott for that state semifinal game. There was probably 45 people on the fan bus for close to a 3-hour drive, which was insane. Really kind of showed the level of support that we had drummed up within the community. But just anything, games that are 20, 30 minutes away for sectionals, we'd a lot of times have 3-4 buses packed with people. So it was pretty neat.
No, it is huge. What was that bus ride like to Union Endicott? It was a little rowdier on the way there than on the way back?
Yeah, certainly, obviously with a tough loss, but still people really had a good time, and it was a good bonding experience for kids, and we spent a lot of time going there, obviously together with the group that was on the bus. Ton of fun, went to a meal on each there and back, which was cool. Teachers were on the bus too, obviously supervisors, so it was a good overall bonding experience for a bunch of people, but obviously, yeah, a little quieter on the way home. Some people were sleeping, obviously, with it being late at night, 3-hour ride home, but it was a great time.
I liked, reading your tweets and everything, and you do, I don't know, I think it's conscious, it's a conscious effort, but I think you did a really nice job giving other people credit. Let's take baseball, for example. Your catcher this year was Joey Santa, and I talked to Joey at his graduation party. You would be a tough kid to catch. You throw hard, you throw a variety of pitches. If you want to try to throw something that's going to go in the dirt, he's got to be confident. But explain how you would consciously know, I'm not doing this alone, even though the game pretty much starts and ends with me on the mound.
Yeah, obviously I would have some huge games and kind of felt like everyone was kind of giving me like a lot of love, obviously like breaking records and things like that. A lot of people noticed that, but I wanted to make sure that people knew that like how big of a role my catcher was playing in that too. We'd stay up at night a lot of times the night before starts, talk about the opposing team's lineup, how we'd attack them. He's a super knowledgeable baseball guy, so he would have a lot of really nice insight. And then leading up to the games, we'd talk throughout the school day. While we're warming up for the game, he'd give his opinion on how we could attack guys, which had a huge help. And then once the game started, obviously just a tremendous catcher in terms of how he receives the ball, frames it, really good at calming me down in between innings, kind of keeping us steady. He was huge in all those respects. So I would try to obviously in interviews with like media people after the game, always give him a shout out. And then on Barstool, a lot of times I do like game recaps, and sometimes he wouldn't necessarily, maybe he goes 0 for 4 at the plate, but he has a huge game catching. No one really notices that, so I'd make sure to kind of shout him out and be like, yeah, I had a huge game pitching, but Joey Santa was huge behind the plate and was a instrumental part of that. So I felt like that was nice to kind of give him some love for that too.
Did you sometimes do videos from the bus on the bus rides home? I know it's Michael Wheelhand just coming out of his shell this year and being just like Chris Berman on there. Chris Berman, for those that you don't know, the young kids, he goes way, way back in ESPN lore.
Yeah, occasionally. So obviously, I was a big part of the Barstool was giving pre and post game interviews with different sports. Me and being in street clothes just as a spectator at the games. So after baseball games, if I had a huge game, and then obviously Michael wasn't playing for a lot of the season, being injured, so he kind of took the role on of being the guy that does the post game interviews, and he would a lot of times do them on the bus after a big away game. So that was kind of a cool bonding experience, and the guys kind of got fired up for that on the bus, and it was always something we kind of looked forward to. After the big away game, I had to who's getting interviewed by Michael on the bus. So it was kind of a cool thing to do.
Yeah, it is. It's a good bonding, good chemistry building amongst the team. You had a great run in the beginning. I think you won 10 in a row once you got back from down south.
Yeah.
There was one interview that was done in front of a bathroom. Do you guys remember that one? Did you guys take any flack for that?
I think it was in Myrtle Beach, and yeah,
Okay.
some people did end up making fun of it a little bit.
Well, I think the moms that watched it, like Mrs. Heise and Mrs. Santa, they're like, they're in front of a bathroom. What are they doing? But it was fun. I think one of the more memorable ones, and I want you to speak to this, is when you covering unified basketball. And I first want you to explain to the listeners what unified basketball is, and then explain to them your interview with an athlete from that game.
Yeah, so unified basketball is obviously a basketball sport. It's a winter sport, or I'm sorry, a spring sport. And kids who either have some sort of special needs or disability, or are just kind of looking for something to be a part of that don't usually get to be a part of things, join the basketball team. They play games against other teams. They do keep score. There's winners, but there's also a ton of fun. There's like dance-offs within the games and stuff. So the kids just love being a part of that. So we got to go out to a unified basketball game as the baseball team. We got everyone from the baseball team to go out. We had a ton of fun, but the kids had even more fun. They were on the unified basketball team. They just loved seeing some students, their fellow students, supporting them, because that's not usually something that happens at unified basketball games. And then I kind of announced, we're going to interview a couple unified basketball athletes who wants to be a part of it, and the kids just kind of ran over. They were all super excited about it. We picked out two of the kids that were especially excited about it, interviewed them, and it was like made their day, like probably made their year, and they just had a ton of fun with it. Had like 2-3 minute interviews with each of them, posted them on Barstool on Instagram and Twitter, and they just got a huge kick out of it. So it was pretty cool.
It's the fact that, like, I don't have any interest in being a special ed teacher or whatever, if you get, take onto your career later on. But getting that community, not just the student athlete, but the student athlete with disabilities, it incorporates everything. Well, what else I got here? Do you have any plans as you move into college to horse around with this type of thing? Or are you going to leave Barstool Hilton to some guys coming up, is it the Valenti? And
yeah, so
okay.
Valenti will be doing the graphics again, and then we got Ryan Reed and Peyton Prince will be doing a lot of the stuff that I was doing this year. Hopefully, if they could even do like half as much as I did this year, I'd be super excited to see that continue on. And obviously, hopefully 5-10 years from now, they'll keep passing it down to new people each year, and we see it grow every year. But in terms of going off to college, right now, it's a lot going on in my mind with like getting my classes and friends and teammates and playing baseball in college. Obviously, that's the focus right now. But kind of once I move in, if I got real settled in and stuff, totally be something I consider doing again in college, or getting a big community going, something like that, because I just love these community-based things and putting time into social media, and I have a real talent with social media, so it's good to help people out with that.
Now, let's say there's a young kid out there listening to you. How would you advise them to go about doing their own social media on a platform like this?
Yeah, I would say first off, keep it positive. Obviously, you don't want to have people shying away if you're saying, disrespectful things, or all of a sudden people start, you get a bad reputation right away with that. So keep everything positive and post a ton. If you stay consistent with your posting, eventually they get pushed out to the right audience. Your posts, there's algorithms on all social media that kind of push out the content you're talking about to the audience you're looking to reach. So if you only post a couple times, and you don't get a ton of engagement. You're kind of could be easy to give up, but you got to make sure you're staying consistent. And after that, you'll start to build up a following. And then don't be afraid to follow other people too. If you're not following anybody, a lot of times people won't ever notice your account. So post consistently and follow some people in the community that you want to reach, and you'll have a good chance to start gaining a following in return.
Well, one of the nice awards you got from the Iglesias 585 Ballers, is it, or
I
5?
think it's Primetime 585.
Okay,
Yeah.
they gave you guys an honor, Student Run Social Media of the Year award, and that was back in April. Speak about that recognition a little bit.
Yeah, that was pretty neat because you obviously have a lot of student-run social media accounts. Different, pretty much every student section at Rochester has a social media account. Most classes have a student social media account. A lot of kids run sports accounts, sports specific, like different teams, basketball teams or football teams, whatever the case may be. And then we actually had a lot of spin-offs of our account. Other towns started making Barstool Canandaigua. There was all sorts of other barstools like that. So to kind of stand out as the best of all those was definitely an honor and a testament to everything we put into it, all the work we put into it, and then obviously to be recognized by what's probably considered, the best social media all around in probably New York State, with Primetime having, well over 30,000 followers between two platforms is pretty cool because no one's more respected than she is. So to have her give us respect was pretty cool.
Well, I think that's probably a good note to end on at this point. We're going to take a brief break with James Capellupo III, owner. Are you the owner of Barstool
Oh
Hilton?
yeah.
And then we'll come back with some baseball stuff.
Sweet.
Stay tuned for that.
Sweet.
Well, we're back with the Big H podcast, and this is the episode Jawin with James Capellupo III. He's not only the originator of Barstool Hilton, an amazing social media platform on many platforms, but he was also the ace pitcher for Hilton this year and last year, and he's really made the varsity baseball team all 4 years. He lost 1 year in his freshman year due to the pandemic, but really has been a mainstay fixture. And we're going to get into some of his accolades from this past year and the last 2 years. James, going back early on, and this goes back T-ball, Little League, when did you realize that your love of baseball was there and that you wanted to really pursue this with a passion?
Honestly, a little later than people would probably imagine. Growing up, I would say basketball was my favorite sport, and also the sport I was probably best at. And then I played football too growing up. I would say it was not till I was maybe like 13 or so, right kind of when I became a teenager, I kind of started to get more of a passion for baseball. Started to get a little bit bigger, kind of cut out to some of my peers in terms of size. And then my talent was able to take over at that point a little bit, and then started really kind of grinding out the work and started getting better. And once you saw progress, I kind of got addicted to that and just kept getting after it and getting better and better. So I'd say about 13, I kind of knew I had a chance to go long term with baseball.
Now, at 13, were you a position player and a pitcher, or did you realize, you had a special talent for pitching?
Yeah, so actually it's funny. So when I don't know, for people who don't know, when you go from 12 to 13 years old, the field gets a lot bigger in terms of size. Pitcher's mound backs up 14 feet. Bases get 30 feet longer, so it's kind of a whole different ballgame at that point. Really caters to guys who are bigger for their age at that point, with the strength aspect of being able to get the ball from the pitcher's mound to the plate and ball out of the infield if you're a batter. So people kind of thought I wasn't going to be able to pitch at that level because I was a very good pitcher on the small field, but I was small for my age, kind of scrawny, not super tall. So people kind of were just assuming that I was going to kind of get rid of pitching once I got to 13, stick with position playing because I was pretty good in the field at shortstop and all around the infield and batting. But I really had a passion for pitching. I never really liked hitting as much as I did pitching. It's always my favorite part of the game. So I kind of devoted myself to saying like, hey, I'm going to get bigger, going to gain weight, going to do whatever it takes to keep pitching on the big field. And so kind of proved some people wrong with that. And then once I got to like 14, 15, really started getting bigger. And kind of at that point, it was like, I'm considerably better at pitching than position playing at this point, and kind of knew that was where my future was at.
Explain to our novice listener on baseball, what are the differences from league to league to league? You got NYB, I don't know, whatever. Can you explain a little bit of that?
In terms of like travel leagues and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there's
So you have
MCBR.
house leagues too, right?
Yeah, so house leagues are the lowest level of league. That's kind of like your little league kids that just kind of want to be a part of the game and don't really have huge passion or talent for it. And then MCBR is kind of like the next level. Each town usually has a team for that. Kind of like varsity, but a lot of the best varsity players aren't playing that, or a lot of the best school ball players at that level are usually in the bigger travel leagues, which is kind of you get your teams. So most travel teams have guys from all over that county or even that region of the state or even across multiple states, and then those teams travel across the country, across the coast to play other big level travel teams, which kind of pushes you and really gets you some good competition.
Now, you did a lot of traveling,
Mhm.
right? How far did you go to travel to do your summer baseball, and how many baseball games would you play in a summer season?
Yeah, so I would say some of the deeper traveling road trips we went on were like Tennessee, South Carolina, Virginia, things like that. And then we did a lot of stuff in Maryland, a lot of stuff in Ohio, New Jersey, Massachusetts, a lot of the surrounding states that were kind of closer but still out of state. So you can get a lot of the big kind of groups from different states filtering into those places to kind of congregate and play a big tournament in one of those states.
So the competition must have been real steep and
Hmm.
everything, right?
Yeah, very good competition.
So every team had three or four ace pitchers. I
Oh
mean, they
yeah.
they just okay. Now I think a lot of people are familiar with like the Little League World Series, and I've heard about that 14-man roster, or even girls now.
Hmm.
They can all pitch. Was that the same thing with your summer travel teams?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, you kind of had to too because most of them were either weekend or what was called extended weekends. So they were like Thursday to Sunday or sometimes even Friday to Sunday. So you got a bunch of games packed into 3, 4 days. So you kind of, especially as you're getting bigger and stronger, you can't really afford for people's arms to only have a few pitchers. Kind of had to have a full roster of deep staff. So a lot of those teams had like 6, 8 really strong pitchers on it, which was good and helped us play deep into the weekends and make a run at championships in those tournaments.
Now, was your dad coaching you in all those leagues, or was there other guys too?
Yeah, so my dad was always the assistant coach to a guy named Nelson Madrid on those teams.
Is
My
that Jason Madrid's dad?
Jaden Madrid, yeah, kid from
Plays for
Athena.
Athena. Okay,
Hmm.
keep going. I'm sorry to
No, you're
interject.
good. No, yeah. So Jaden, star player for Greece Athena. His dad was the coach for pretty much my entire childhood since I was 5 or 6 years old. My dad would help off. My dad did a lot of the baseball specific stuff like coaching third base, creating the sign system, things of that nature, and then Coach Nelson would do fill out the lineups and kind of get us into the tournaments and do like a lot of the administrative things related to the team. So it was a nice little complementary relationship there as the coaches.
Good way of putting it. Okay, and prior to entering ninth grade, let's say, at what age did you like show a progression that was like, wow, that was a big, like someone had watched you one year and then they watched you the next. What age was that where they said, wow, he really made a jump?
Yeah, so the huge point was after eighth grade. So I made JV as an eighth grader, had a decent season, led the team in most offensive categories, and was kind of a not necessarily the ace pitcher, kind of a relief guy. Made a few spot starts. Obviously, being an eighth grader on JV, there were some older guys that were bigger. So I went to a showcase right after my eighth grade year. I'd never thrown on the gun before that, never thrown on the radar gun. Just did my best and kind of whatever happens, happens. Hit 77. So that was actually better than I expected at that point. So I was like, hey, let's really get after this now and start to see hopefully improvement on the gun. So from hitting 77 at that showcase, I got invited to what's called the PBR Junior Future Games. So that's a big deal. That's the best 15 or previous eighth graders, so incoming ninth graders in the state. We went down to Atlanta, Georgia. I represented New York State there, and I hit 80 there after putting in about a month of really hard work after the 77. Then that 80 kind of got me on the radar to college coaches for the first time. And then that was where the huge gains started to come in. I kind of dedicated myself to gaining weight. I went from 5'11", 145 to 5'11", 190 in about 6 months. And my velocity went from 80 to 84. Hit 84 winter of my freshman year, right before COVID happened. Off of that, got invited to the PBR Future Games, which is the step up from the Junior Future Games. So represented New York again, this time after my freshman year, kind of in the midst of the COVID, so it was a little abbreviated, a little bit of a not as crowded of an environment as it would have been if it wasn't for COVID. But a lot of coaches watched on the live stream. A lot of coaches saw virtually the performance I put up. I hit 86 there, and got a bunch of offers right after that from Division I schools. The school I ended up going to, UMass Lowell, they offered me about a week after that performance, so that was huge. So I went from 77 to 86 in about a calendar year, which was the big jump that kind of changed my career.
And how much was the weight you put on in that same calendar year?
Yes, I was always at that point I was pretty tall. I was 5'11" as a kid that just got out of 8th grade, but I was probably 140 when I hit 77, and then when I hit 86, I was 195. So
Okay.
55 pounds.
Okay. And was that weight wise, or did you pack the powder, or did you eat a lot? Like or just a combination of all of it?
Yeah, so I kind of really got addicted to the weight room at that point. I had been kind of lifting weights in a kind of on and off manner before that for a few years. And that I kind of got into a really strict, like 5 or 6 day a week program, and then just packed on food, just 7,500, 8,000 calories a day, crazy amounts of food. And I was working hard enough in the weight room and on my sprints and speed and all those different aspects that I wouldn't get out of shape if I ate that much. So I actually got faster after gaining all that weight, obviously a ton stronger, and it was a career-changing couple months there.
Yeah, I remember during football double sessions, you were out there with your father. Wow, it was 85-degree heat. You were running sprints on the football field. In terms of weight training for baseball players, like how much of it is leg work? And I don't think you want to be too bulky up top, right? How do you make that, complementary combination?
Yes, I mean, a lot of people are against upper body weightlifting. I kind of have a little bit of a controversial take with that I really think being strong in the upper body is super important, especially in your throwing arm. Obviously people talk about Tommy John surgery, all those horrible things that can happen to your arm, which is an ongoing risk for me every day I throw. So that happens to your UCL. You tear your UCL, that's Tommy John. Your UCL is a super small muscle around the elbow. So from what I've read, and my scientific take on it is you want the muscles around that, like your forearms, your biceps, your triceps, big muscles like that, to be as big and strong as possible to kind of cushion the blow that your smaller ligaments and things are going to take. So I really try to put an emphasis on being as strong as I can in those muscle groups, so putting time into the weight training, but also staying lean with that. So eating well, sleeping well, running a lot of sprints, things like that, so I can be super strong but also stay lean and not get too bulky, like you said.
Now, throughout your career, have you ever had arm soreness or difficulty? And if so, what did you do to combat that?
Yeah, definitely have arm soreness a lot of times. I've been a strong pitcher for a handful of years now, obviously for different teams. So it's tough for coaches to kind of not pitch me a lot. They kind of want to lean on me, especially in big games, to throw the ball. So I end up throwing the ball a lot. So it can get tough sometimes. You build up soreness and fatigue, things like that in your arms. So the big things for me is nothing kind of too secretive or flashy. I kind of just try to eat well, drink a lot of water, get to bed early, especially the night before and after I pitch, which has kind of been big to kind of remedy the soreness and things like that.
Do you ice after games?
I don't. I do regular ice baths. I usually do an ice bath every 2 days in general throughout my training, but which is a little crazy, I guess. Something most kids wouldn't.
I was
do.
thinking icing your elbow or your shoulder or something, which I see on TV in the locker room. But
yeah, so I do ice baths, but I don't usually ice my arm right after I throw.
Okay, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, let's go back to your high school career. Freshman year, we were afflicted with COVID. And during COVID, as teachers, we talk about learning loss and what happened. Did you suffer any athletic loss with your pitching arm, or did you maintain your strength throughout that season, even though there wasn't a high school year?
Yeah, I think if anything, the COVID in a weird way kind of helped me out because with no school, obviously I had to make it to my Zooms and all that online still. Still keep up my good grades, put in a lot of work, but obviously the workload wasn't as much from an academic standpoint during COVID as it was normally. You kind of sleep in, get to your Zooms. You didn't have to obviously go into the building physically. So with that going on, I could kind of get up at a reasonable hour, like 8 a.m., get all my schoolwork out of the way, and now it's noon and I'm done. And I had the rest of the day to put in a ton of work. Didn't have to worry about being in school till 2:30. So I had more of the day to myself, it felt like. So I could train even harder than I would have if I was in school or something like that. So I had a big increase in progress throughout COVID, which was good.
And then moving on to your sophomore year, you had looked up some stats, and you were 4 wins and 2 losses with, I think it was 38 strikeouts and 11 walks. Going back to that year, some athletes, and I know pitchers especially, like they can think back to every hitter, every pitch they made that was good, bad. What are some thoughts that you had from that season?
Yeah, so that was an interesting year. So we had Preston Prince, who was a really, really good pitcher, was on the staff that year. A couple seniors that kind of were in the rotation because they were seniors and they had been around a little bit. So coach had a lot of confidence in them. So I kind of started off the year despite where I thought I had gotten to progress wise, more of a reliever, kind of a spot start guy, and then it kind of got to the point where it was like, hey, like every time I go out there, I'm throwing strikes and I'm getting outs. And I started to build up confidence. And by the end of the year, I was the ace. I started in the quarterfinal game, pitched really well against Fairport, complete game. And then coach had enough confidence to start me in the finals against a really, really good Penfield team. Fortunately, I didn't throw the ball great in that game, but and it ended up finishing the season, starting the sectional finals as a sophomore and having a really good statistical season overall, first team all county. So that was a big kind of jumping point for me from that point to get better because we're throwing a ton of strikes, getting a ton of outs, like I said, but not punching out a ton of guys. So it was just a really nice starting point for me going into my final 2 years.
So what seniors did you have on that year? I'm just trying to
Yes, so that was Jake Sorcone,
No,
Josh Wheeler, Tyler Cerami,
gotcha.
Logan Batts, and AJ Mandricky were the guys that kind of got significant playing time. Then we also had Cody Vetter, Anthony Gramsey, and Jaden Rosario. So 8
Okay.
seniors that year.
All right, I'm just trying to place. Now, the coach in me, every time there's a big loss, you always say you learn more from a loss than you do from a win. Can you say anything from that loss in sectional finals your sophomore year that you really came away with that helped you later on?
Without a doubt. So, I mean, obviously, I had a lot of string of really good starts and stuff. Hadn't thrown the ball poorly in a long time. So that was one. Throwing the ball that poorly in a big game was kind of a humbling experience. But also from a mentality standpoint, it was huge because I went into the game facing Gage Zeal, who's probably the greatest pitcher, top 2 pitchers to ever come out of this area. So going into the game, I really honestly had a ton of confidence. Felt like as unrealistic as this might sound, felt like I was going to go in and beat him in that game. So I kind of changed my mentality a little bit from that because I was almost so amped up, so ready to prove myself that I had so much energy. Wasn't nervous, but was like super anxious and kind of got wild in that game. I'm usually a strike thrower, even to this point. So that was really uncharacteristic, and I felt like a lot of it had to do with how fired up I was for that game. So then going into my junior year, I kind of focused on kind of relaxing myself before games, if anything, toning down the energy level a little bit. That way I could stay more focused, throw more strikes, and execute pitches a little bit better. So that was a huge learning experience overall.
Good. Could you go back to Zeal a little bit? Just explain to our audience a little bit who he is and what he's done.
Yeah, of
And then we'll
course.
move on to your junior year.
So if you look back now, after my senior year, 3 guys that pretty much hold all the records in Section 5 pitching are me, Gage Zeal, and a kid named Brian Dupre that ended up playing professionally. So we're kind of the guys, especially Gage. I mean, he's obviously been not obviously, for those of you who don't know, he's a All-American now at the University of Miami. Dupre played professionally, so those are 2 huge arms. And Zeal that year, I think he had a .2 ERA, .35 whip, so just some crazy numbers going into that game. Struck out a ton of guys, so no one had really touched him all year. So he was kind of a real big deal at that point in time. Still
And I
is.
remember watching Dupre play. They played Hilton in the sectional finals that year,
Mhm.
and he was on a pitch count. I think, which college did he go to?
He went to
Was he Notre Dame?
yeah.
Okay, and he couldn't pitch so many, and we got a couple guys on near the end, and I think Coach Bunning was coaching over there. Put Dupre in there for the final out. Boom, 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 boom. Game over. All right, now moving back to you. Junior year, had a similar record, 4-2. You upped your strikeout total to 54. I'm not so sure about innings. My assumption is you probably pitched more innings. Reflect on your junior season there.
Yeah, so junior season was big. I kind of came into the year as the kind of undisputed ace. I was leading a staff that was expected to do big things, and we did. Preston Prince had a huge year. Stephen Krause had a huge year. We were probably the most respected staff in Rochester, so it was a big change from kind of that underdog mentality sophomore year of kind of not a lot of people knowing who
You got
we
to
are.
mention Carter Clark on that. He's
Oh,
a
of
pretty good
course.
reliever.
He was a reliever. Yeah,
Okay.
very good.
I know you're going starting pitchers, but
Yeah,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Carter. Yeah, you had a great season that year, but
he's listening, and he's
Yes.
going to make you remember that.
so it was big change, kind of having a ton of more attention on me, kind of trying to control that and keep throwing the ball well with more hype around me, which was big. Like you said, I had the same record as sophomore year, but had a much better season. Punched out more guys, went deeper into games, all those things. So kind of had a huge year with that. Made All Greater Rochester. Unfortunately, we lost in the first round of that sectional season with a tough 2-1 loss to a really good pitcher on the other side with Braden Counselor, who's also playing Division I ball now. So that was tough, but it was definitely a step in the right direction from sophomore year.
Same question. Tough loss. What did you learn from the loss in that sectional game? or is it mirror image from the year before?
No, so it's funny. So I mean, it kind of ended up obviously for those of you who know this how the senior year finished being a little bit of deja vu from that junior year, but definitely my approach changed in terms of going into the senior year of what I had to do to win games on a start in and start out basis. So we lost 2-1. So obviously giving up 2 runs and pitching the whole game was a pretty darn good performance from a pitcher. But I kind of recognized that I had to be better than that because we made a lot of mistakes in the field. I allowed the ball to be put in play a lot, which allowed room for things to happen in the field. And then also giving up 2 runs. And it's like, yeah, 2 runs should be enough to win the game. But at the end of the day, if you give up 0 runs, you know you're going to win the game. So I went into my senior year with the idea that I needed to strike out a ton of guys. If I struck out guys, there was no chance that ball was put in play and something went wrong in the field. So by doing that, I kind of had more of a perfection mindset, more of get each guy out one guy at a time, which obviously led to like shutouts every single time I pitched my senior year, which was big in terms of a mentality shift, hunting strikeouts.
It's impressive how you take responsibility that I let people put the ball in play. Well, that's also baseball too. I mean,
Yeah.
Hey, they may not be hitting it hard every time, but you can't strike out every guy. But, your strikeouts from sophomore year was 38, then it was 54. You ended up starting more games this season. I don't think you're as deep as a rotation that you had this year, but I'll digress a little bit. You ended up striking out 88 with 3 walks, a 7-1 record. You threw a no-hitter against Webster Schrader, who was tops in your division, with 17 strikeouts, which was a school record. James, it just seemed every time that you were on the mound, we had a shot in the game because if they can't score, you can't lose.
Yeah.
And I think I told your dad this. I go, I just watch James, get me 1 run, guys, and I'll take it the rest. And unfortunately against Penfield, they got 2 on you, and you got 1 back. You just couldn't get over that. So speak about your senior year, your accolades, disappointments, and then some of your postseason awards. And if you don't remember them, I will.
Yeah, so like you had said, it was the big thing was trying to hunt shutouts every time, punch out as many guys as possible, limit the balls put in play. So thought I did a really good job with that. I broke the Section 5 record for shutouts in a season. I think that was the state record too. First to ever get 6 shutouts in a season. Would have had 7, but we were up 15-0 against Rush, so I got pulled earlier in that game. And then, it wasn't much of an approach change from game to game in terms of overall mentality. It was kind of just never felt like a game was too big for me or too small of a game. Just kind of went out there even keeled each time, just tried to get 1 batter out at a time, and that led to obviously breaking all the records for scoreless innings in a row, innings without an earned run in a row.
Which is how many scoreless innings in a row?
Scoreless innings, I think I was at 60 in a row, and then I was over 100 for innings without an earned run, dating back to last year. So that was big. Just tried to really, even to an extent, go 1 pitch at a time, as cliche as that sounds, which was a big part of my success, and kind of mentality was a huge part of my success overall this year, getting a lot more cerebral and kind of slowing things down. And that led, obviously, to a big year, only loss being in the sectional game there. Only run giving up being in the sectional game.
Now, how many pitches would you average for a game? Or were you ever on a pitch count? I'm confused now in high school. Like, are you guys regulated by a certain number?
So, unfortunately, Section 5 does regulate you to 105 pitches a game. That's not, an individual or a coach rule. It's kind of across. You have to follow that. It's a very strict rule. So it really forces you to be efficient too, which was big. So that's why a lot of people thought it was even crazier that I broke that record. I think Paul Gotham, actually one of the most well-known writers in Rochester, actually wrote an article during COVID that said the most unbreakable record in Section 5 was shutouts in a season, because it was so hard to even throw a complete game now with the 105 pitch limit, let alone to shut someone out. So I had to be real efficient. If you got to 0-2 in a count, you couldn't really afford to nibble and kind of give away a pitch and try to waste a pitch. I kind of had to go right after guys, which was tough, but it worked out.
Explain to the listener, I mean, you threw hard, but what other pitches can you throw consistently for strikes?
Yeah, so people kind of find it funny. I do throw really hard. I think I was the hardest thrower in Rochester this year. Fastball's been up to 91 pretty consistently in games, but I really am more of a breaking ball kind of guy. Throw all sorts of different breaking balls. I throw a slider, which is, for listeners that don't know a lot about pitching, is a super horizontal pitch. Then I throw a curveball, which is more vertical, and then a slurve, which is kind of a hybrid of the two, which is my go-to pitch, which is kind of in between of the horizontal and vertical. People call it on a clock like a 2 to 8 pitch. You can envision that. So I actually leaned on that a ton. I would say I was about 75% of my pitches was that. I actually threw in the no-hitter. I threw against Schrader. I was 96 pitches, and I was 94 breaking balls and 2 fastballs. So that kind of gives you the idea of the confidence I had in that pitch. And that pitch is my slider gets up to 86. Slurve kind of sits in the low 80s, so that's harder than most guys' fastballs. So that was kind of why it was so successful for me, with so much movement and also so much velocity.
Well, wow. You were also Division I Player of the Year, which means you're all county,
Mm-hmm.
and then you were also All Greater Rochester Player of the Year,
Mm-hmm.
which is amazing. And I think it's amazing. You know, you broke some records and everything. Unfortunately, sometimes that award goes to somebody that maybe wins the sectionals or maybe wins a state title. Not many people in Hilton have gotten that award, so you're in the record books in many arenas. Talk about your teammates a little bit, because some of these guys you've been with a while, played summer with some of them. I think they looked at you. You know, your team didn't have captains, but I think if there was an emotional leader, the way I saw it, it was you out there.
Yeah, my teammates were super important to me. Obviously, teammates, everyone has their teammates, but my teammates were also like my closest friends off the field. So being able to build that relationship and having that familiarity and chemistry with the teammates, of them being the guys you also hang out with on the weekends, the guys you have fun with and do things non-baseball related with, was huge. And they meant a lot to me. So we kind of, as a team, especially the senior class, but really everybody kind of went out and really played hard for each other every day. Every day at practice, we were super close. So that made it obviously more fun, but also allowed us to have a ton of success, win a lot of games and a lot of close games because of our ability to stick together. So I kind of also felt, like you said, like there was no captains, but I was really the guy that kind of everyone looked to, and I would kind of rally everybody up, bring everybody in. I never wanted to get negative. I know I've played when I wasn't the leader on teams. A lot of leaders were super negative, kind of yelled at guys, things like that. I like to kind of be a super positive leader, kind of really get everyone going and gain confidence for everyone else, guys around me, which I think helped a lot.
Probably moving now. We're gonna move into your college plans. So overall in high school, we had you at 15 wins, 5 losses, 180 Ks with just 25 walks. Pretty good career with a no-hitter thrown in there with a bunch of shutouts too that broke a Section 5 record. You're going to be taking your talents to University of Massachusetts at Lowell. Is that how we say it?
Yeah, UMass Lowell, UMass at Lowell. See
Okay.
the way, yeah.
Now, you alluded to a little bit of how you got recognized by that school. Explain it to our listener a little bit about their baseball program and their plans for what they want to try to do with you.
Yeah, so it's a Division I program. It's what we call a mid-major. It's not a big time conference like, for those of you who don't know, Power 5 conferences like the well-known schools, Duke, Notre Dame, things like that. So we're not a low major. Low major's the lower level Division I conferences. We're kind of a middle of the line Division I conference, team that you have to win your conference to make the playoffs. And it's a team that's been Division I for about a decade now. They've had some success, some up and downs throughout the years. So I kind of really want to go there and kind of take that program off to another level, hoping that with my talents we can hopefully win a lot of games there. And they envision me as a freshman coming right in and either being a conference starter or a closer, like a high leverage guy out of the bullpen. So I'm hoping to be a conference starter, but either way, have a really big role as a true freshman, which is one of the main reasons I'm going to that school.
You want to play right away.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, in your communications with the coach or whoever's been recruiting you, have they given you things to work on this summer that they want to see you improve a little bit before you walk into the college level?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, they're super pleased with how motivated I am on my own without really having to have a coach, up my butt or anything like that. And kind of just wake up every day and kind of just get after it, and don't really need a ton of outside motivation, which they're super happy with. And they obviously love my progress from a velocity standpoint, pitch mix standpoint. I have a ton of pitches that are going to play right at the college level right away. The big thing for them is they just want me to stay healthy, want me to keep working out, keep prioritizing sleep, nutrition. They're going to have a dietitian working with me when I get there, which will be good. So kind of just more of the same is what they want from me, not anything specific to change. Maybe a little bit more working on this summer, pounding the zone with fastballs, just so I can be comfortable throwing that pitch more often in games at the college level.
I didn't understand when you're talking about the Schrader no-hitter, 96 out of the 98 were slurves.
Yeah, 94 to 96, yeah.
It's insane. What are you doing this summer in terms of what league you're playing ball in?
Yeah, so I'm playing what's called American Legion. There's Legion posts around the county, but also around the entire country. I play for Greece Post, so the Greece veterans, they sponsor our team. And we're having a really strong year so far this year. Last year we lost in the Northeast USA Finals. This year we're 10-0, so looking to make another run at a World Series, hopefully, which would be really cool. And our team's super close. Got a lot of the top players from around Section 5 this year kind of playing for fun. And hopefully to win some games, and we're having a blast doing it right now.
How many games a week do you play?
So it's a tight season because you got to get your regular season in, but then also county playoffs, state playoffs, regional playoffs, and then the World Series all in before kids going into high school go back to school, and then kids going into college leave for college. So we played 16 games. We're at 10 right now. We're playing 6 more. The total 16 games in about 22 days. So it's packed right now. Regular season culminates July 10th, and then we'll go into county playoffs after that and hopefully win those and go on a nice run.
Now, throughout your career, who's been your most influential person?
I'm very intrinsically motivated. I kind of do a lot of my research and invent all my own programs on my own. But in terms of just overall support, definitely my dad. We're pretty close, and he just kind of always supports me and pushes me to be better when I need it.
I like it that you're intrinsically motivated and you do a lot of research and everything. I talked to your father a little bit, and I'm telling you, watching your own son play baseball and your own son being the pitcher, it's awful tough and stuff. And I watch him, scooting around on the sidelines, pacing, and I even talk to your grandfather. It's tough playing for your dad, and you have to know that you've done him proud and you've done Hilton proud, and you've left a legacy on this baseball community. And with your Barstool Hilton, you have really brought out such a good part of Hilton, and I'm a Hilton person through and through. So, James Capellupo, it's been great talking with you on this podcast. It's been great getting to know you. You've been a tremendous friend of my son, and I just wish you the best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the podcast. Okay.
The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style. From the highs to the lows, every story just explodes. Mike's got questions on the go, diving deep from head to toe. Every week the guests align, sharing moments so divine. Stay with us, the pace is fine. Every episode you'll find. The Big H Podcast, tune in now. Conversations that'll wow. Laugh and learn, stay a while. Let's explore that Hilton style.